Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to 22 Panels, where my guests today are Kriota Willberg and our regular contributor and her spouse, Bob Sikoryak. So hello to the two of you. Great to see you again, Bob. Great to meet you, Kriota. How
Hey,
are
Tad.
things?
Hi. Great to meet you too.
Yeah. How are things today? How was your Thanksgiving?
Oh, all's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Things are just wet today, but other than
Wet?
that,
Foggy,
it's all fine.
foggy
Yeah.
outdoors.
Yeah.
And you're both teachers, so are you looking forward to the end of the semester? Are you at that point where it's like
Yeah, kind
you're
of
you're you're
on the
ready to not
verge.
see the students for a few weeks?
Well, the end of the semester, it's stressful for students, but it's also stressful for teachers. Like we all are
I'm
under.
a teacher. I know.
Yeah, yeah,
You got to get all the grading done and you got to deal with all the students who have figured out with 3 weeks left that maybe they should have been doing work 2 months ago. And
yeah. It's
it's all
just
sorts of fun stuff.
keeping track of everybody and trying to maintain encouragement while you're like making sure you're getting everybody organized or making sure everyone's organized. Plus,
Right.
getting yourself organized can be really. And
Exactly.
there's also preparing for the next semester.
Yeah. There's that too.
Yeah, I'm at the
I,
point of this semester of worrying about next semester. So,
Yeah, yeah.
I So, Kriota, you are the artist in residence at the New York, what's the A for? Something of medicine.
So I was artist in
Oh,
residence
was.
at the New York Academy of Medicine Library Historical Collection
Okay.
back in 2017. Now I'm artist in residence at NYU Langone in the Humanistic Medicine Department.
Okay.
And I'm artist in residence simultaneously for the Center to Advance Palliative Care at Mount Sinai.
Okay.
So I'm just residencing myself in two
Absolutely.
different places this year,
And,
which is really
and
amazing.
and the reason I'm starting there is your artist in residence in two different places now, and a third different place that most people don't immediately go, oh yeah, they need an artist in residence.
Yeah.
So um let's talk about how you got there.
Well, the NIAM library, the historical collection is really fantastic, and I used the collection to research some different comics. I did a mini comic about the wandering uterus,
Yes.
which was a model of gynecological medicine for
Yep.
I don't know
Way
about
too long.
4,000 years, whatever. And um, the director at the time also would invite me to teach drawing workshops, anatomy for artists workshops using the collection, and then also I taught some embroidering medicine workshops where I would teach people how to do embroidery, and we'd use the library's collection for our patterns. And then one day I was joking around with Lisa O'Sullivan, the director at the time, just saying how when I died, my ghost would just continue to haunt the halls of the library or the stacks where I never go because they bring the books out from the stacks. And we were joking around and she was laughing and she said, "Yeah, you should just be our artist in residence." And I went, "You said it." And she got a slightly terrified look on her face and she said, "Okay, there's no money." And I was like, "That's fine. Just give me a desk and access to the materials." And
Okay.
we did that. It totally worked out. I was their artist in residence for 9 months. And it was just such a gift. It was really wonderful. And also having that residency, being their inaugural artist in residence, I think also helped to open up the residency possibilities, at NYU and also at CAPC. So, the experience of having been artist in residence already really, really helped a lot.
So
But I think,
go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, if if someone wants to be an artist in residence somewhere they don't actually have residencies, all you really need to do is just hang out there all the time until everybody knows you. And once they see your work and get to know it, then there might be an opportunity for you to like explore the idea of having an official relationship with them.
Right. Well, but I'm going to take this a step backwards though, because you know what? I mean, obviously you need illustrations for medical textbooks or whatnot. It's important for people to be able to know what a kidney looks like before they cut open a body, etc. But you do cartooning as well, and I've seen you bring that to medicine, and I love it. And there's not enough of it. So that's, I'm trying to go even further back. How did your life take you to the, I'm going to be in medicine, but I'm going to be a cartoonist, not I'm going to be a doctor or I'm going to write Spider-Man.
Right. Well, I was a massage therapist from 1987 until about 2019. Okay. And I also was a dancer and choreographer for quite a long time, and massage therapy was my day job. And then in my 40s, when I was on the verge of having such bad hip arthritis that I was going to have to get a new hip, and now I have two, right? I quit dance, and I knew I wanted to create, like have some kind of creative practice where I could blend my day job, like healthcare and medicine, with my creative practice. Okay. And graphic medicine was just a very new emerging genre. And I figured that even if, and I'd been drawing my whole life, but, very informally on every level. And I figured that even if I sucked at it, I could just keep making comics about healthcare in the body. And if I just kept showing up at all the meetings and conferences or whatever, 10 years later, I'd still be seen as a, pioneer in the field. And I have gotten better with practice. But 2 months ago, someone introduced me to a bunch of other people as a pioneer in the field of graphic medicine. So that worked out too. And I also asked Bob if he would mind if I was going to also be a cartoonist.
So that was my next question. Were you and Bob already together or
Oh, yes.
Or, okay.
Yeah. We're about to celebrate our 27th
wedding anniversary. We've been together
nice.
for it'll be 30 years next.
Yeah. Okay.
Next month.
So
as long as my therapist and I.
No, nice. I wonder what gift you get for them. I just wanted to say also, for people who are not familiar with Kriota at all, we had been together for many years, and also she grew up reading comics. Like, one of the things we kind of bonded over were cartoons and comics. She has a background a background in comics as a reader, but then also like doing narrative in theater and also doing drawing. And, so she came to comics late. And I love when people come to comics kind of fresh and who aren't familiar with like all of the tropes of cartooning and just figure it out. But what's also interesting about Kriota is that wasn't her experience. She was very familiar with the history of comics to a certain extent. She grew up in a library. Yep. Her mom worked in a library, so she was exposed to lots of interesting comics from early on, and also brings that to it as well. So
and she was living in an apartment with you, and
yeah. There's that as well.
That would make it pretty impossible not to know. Yeah. I mean, it's like my wife doesn't know comics and baseball the way I know comics and baseball, but she knows comics and baseball way more than most people who wouldn't describe themselves as hardcore comics and baseball people.
Yeah. Right. Well,
and likewise, I would imagine that Bob knows way more about dance than I do.
Oh yes. Yeah. And I actually used him in some of my dance pieces. Like, he used to do a lot of performance work. And so I would just be like, oh, I need another body, sweetheart. Come to rehearsal.
There you go.
It's my show.
Which is great.
So he would be in my shows. So
okay.
But
Okay.
I consulted with him about becoming a cartoonist first because, I'd actually,
Because when you're more famous, you want to make certain that you asked him first and
yeah.
that he's not intimidated by it.
Well, also, I know some couples, and I've had an experience being in a relationship with someone who is in the same creative practice, and sometimes things can get a little awkward professionally. But
That was
Bob
literally one of the reasons that I wanted to talk to you is like
but Bob,
how does
yeah, he was very optimistic. He didn't feel like we'd have any competition because we're in very different genres, and he's right. Like, we have very similar personalities in a way artistically. Like we both rely on a lot of research. We draw
research
slowly. But and so we have some similar methodologies, but our our directions of interest are very different. So that actually makes sure it helps like eliminate any kind of competition between the two of us.
And even so, I think, that is true, and it certainly makes it easier to sort of think about. But if Kriota was doing something very much like what I was doing, I probably would still be like, this is a big enough world for both of us.
Yeah. And all of that stuff also just comes down to how well you communicate with each other. How do you look at your egos in relationship to each other? There's a lot of things that certain couples can't handle and other couples find incredibly easy. It's just it's the nature of people and communication in life, and fascinating. Not trying to not let the conversation go there. We can go there if you want.
Well, after 27 years, we've got it all down to like an easy routine. Obviously, no matter very successful couples, no matter how well you get along, like when you first start out, you just have to learn how you're going to communicate together.
My wife and I just celebrated our 10th anniversary, and
you're on your way, right?
Still that work. Most of it's smooth sailing and easy routine, but there's still everything we have to work on. Just like everything we've had to work on ever has been finding the right words to communicate with each other, the right language to be able to know each other's experiences. And so in that sense, sometimes working in similar fields can be healthy because then you start sharing analogies. But because my wife and I are both teachers, and that has helped at times as well, to be able to go, okay, it's like when you're dealing with the kid and but so much of any successful relationship, whether it's romantic or otherwise, is learning how to communicate. And that's true even when what you do for a living, like the two of you do, is communicate and in really, both of you don't really do abstract comics. Your comics are very much about communicating.
Yeah. There's an educational element to it, or at least a
you're certainly
humanity
the horse to water.
There's something. Yeah.
You might not be hitting them over the head and making them drink, but you're definitely both bringing the horse to water.
Yeah.
Is it possible to read your books and not learn something? I never want to assume that it's not, because it seems like every time I assume that it shouldn't be possible not to learn something from something, I will then run into somebody who literally managed to either not learn anything or learn something that seems diametrically opposed to the lesson I thought was being taught.
Yeah. Well, you're definitely going to learn something from my comics, but I'll still try to soften the blow by incorporating a poop joke or something in there.
Right. So. Well, I had picked up and read and given to my wife Draw Stronger before I even knew that you and Bob were actually, technically, I've known you professionally longer than I've known Bob.
Oh, wow.
I picked up Draw Stronger for my wife at Cake in 2019. So the year before the pandemic, before the podcast has started, just because my wife's an art teacher and I'm at the indie comic convention, and I see this book that's about, and my wife's an art teacher. My wife at times is a fitness junkie, but specifically in the learning what to do and how to do it and why to do it. That's her junkiness. She still has to like motivate herself to actually do it. She's not the one that's, always working out, but she's the one that is always wanting to know, okay, what's the best way to work out?
Well, it's interesting because the why, it was a really important part to me when I was writing Draw Stronger, because we were guest faculty at the Center for Cartoon Studies back in 2011.
12.
Yeah. And, I would see my students like hunched over their sketchbooks, which would be in their laps. And I'd be like, okay, I think I see a carpal tunnel syndrome about to happen there, and a, impingement syndrome about to happen over here, and a tendonitis over there. And I started looking for, injury prevention resources for artists, and I would find like pieces of things, but nothing
really brought together.
Yeah, nothing really brought together.
And I would also be willing to bet 80% of it in a language that might as well have been Greek to them.
Yeah, and nothing would actually also give them the rationale for why, so some art books would say, oh, okay, do this as a warm-up, do this, but they wouldn't say why or what it was good for. And so I figure if you know why, then you can also like figure out what you need to do, when you need to do it, blah, blah, blah. And so, of course, I wrote the book because there wasn't a book out there. And, it's stunning to me that I Draw Stronger still doesn't have any competition, which, is nice for me in a way, but not good for everybody else. You know what I'm saying?
Hopefully one day it does. But I look at it more as a testament to A, there is a limited market, but B, you did it so well that any competition would have a kind of steep road.
Oh, well, thank you.
That they could imitate you. They could be competition where we're essentially going to put out the same book and hope that we don't cross any lines that make it plagiarism. And then we're going to hope our marketing team can sell more of them. But particularly considering the type of people who make these books, the fact that the market is way too small for the type of people who think in terms of numbers that they can sell versus contributing something. That's my hunch, is it's just in that little nexus where anybody else who might do it went, man, that's a great idea, but she beat me to it. Well, and they might be thinking about other things that they can do around it, but until they feel like they have a book that's just not aping yours.
Yeah.
And you covered a lot. I mean, I'm not an artist, so I mean, maybe I missed stuff, but when I read it, I'm like, I didn't even think of that as an issue, but you've got, the amount that you covered, and for that matter, when my wife read it, and my wife is that geek, and so a lot of it, she's like, oh yeah, I have my students do this stuff all the time, blah blah blah, and others, she's like, oh.
Well, cartoonists, artists, animators, people who do crafts or like work on small scales, like it all kind of spreads across the board.
It does, and really well.
Thank you.
So, I mean, I God bless you for having come up with the idea, and hopefully more artists put it into their hands, because there are two things that I wish all of my cartoonist friends, idols, whatever, and that's enough money that they don't have to work at Walmart to pay the bills, and enough health that they can keep making me comics to read. I mean, these aren't even like my altruistic hopes for the cartoonists that I love. I want them to be able to pay the bills and stay healthy so I get more comics.
Yeah, but if they have to work at Walmart when they hit their 50s, like I did, then they could like start to incorporate, that
could.
history
They
into
could.
their comics
They
bracket.
could. I'm not saying that I don't want that person who worked at Walmart to become a cartoonist. But if you're already making cartoons that I love,
Make more of them.
I don't want you to have to go get life experience to make cartoons because you need to make money to live to make cartoons. If you decide that you'd really like to I mean, like actors will do ride-alongs or whatever. There's the Simpsons episode where James Woods works at the Quickie Mart for okay. So I mean, if you're a cartoonist and you decide you want to do your Walmart comic and you go arrange to work at Walmart for a Christmas season so that you can research it, I'm all for that. I don't want you to have to do that to pay for Christmas presents for your kids.
Well, you know, the thing is that like I was very into like massage therapy, kinesiology, anatomy. You know, I was an educator and everything else. And I had like a tandem career where I was, you know, a professional choreographer, then, you know,
that I get too.
Then a cartoonist, while I also had this other career as a massage therapist. And I know a number of different types of artists who have been successful in the arts, but also unwilling to admit to anybody that they've had another day job, you know, paralegal, you know, like real estate agent, massage therapist, whatever. And I just want to say to people, there's no shame in having a day job.
There's no shame. No shame in having a day job. No. And when I say that sort of thing, it has nothing to do with any shame or whatnot. It has
I know. Yeah. I'm not trying to shake a finger at you.
I know you're not. I do think about it a lot because I mean, people will ask me, you know, if you could make enough money with the podcast, which that's funny. That you
from all the
stop
ads
teaching.
you sell.
Yeah, we lose money on the podcast, particularly when it gets into the number of comics I read for research purposes for the podcast. But even if it came down to, you know, if I got to a point where I had an inheritance or a grant or whatever, and I started publishing comics and was able to make money there, I still don't know if I'd want to quit teaching because I love teaching.
Yeah.
You know, it would make it easier for me to teach on my own terms.
Right.
And that's really what I mean. Is I want as many people in life in general to be able, you know, the altruistic side is I want as many people as humanly possible to be able to live life on their own terms.
I thought
selfish side.
I thought you were going to say as many people as humanly possible to make comics.
well, no, because not everybody wants to make comics. Some people want to make music or
I wouldn't want to force anybody to make comics.
Right.
Yeah. Everybody has to make comics on our terms.
But
really.
From a selfish standpoint, the artists that make art that I love, I doubly want that to be true.
Sure. Yeah.
So that I get more of their art. I mean, I remember that, you know, this is like a variation on conversations that that many of us have had since high school. I mean, I'm certain that you've had the conversation with a friend at some point where they get angry because this or that artist, generally a band, sold out. And what they mean by sold out is either they finally have a platinum record or their song was used in a commercial. And I've always, you know, even in high school, I'd sit there going, wait a minute. So let me get this straight. You love this band. They're your favorite band on earth. So you want them to be hungry.
Yeah.
I think
you want them to wonder where they're going to sleep tonight.
I think that conversation has shifted a lot.
It has. But you still see it.
Right.
Sure. You see it on both ends of the spectrum. You see it. The kids that still idealize artists is this completely pure thing.
Yeah.
And you see it, the people who want to make money off of the artists who but they get to do what they love. I'd be happy to be hungry if I got to do what I love. I have to be a banker. You know, nobody likes being a banker.
I think one of the reasons this comes up, and this is in Kriota's work as well, she wanted to be upfront about her day job and about the other things she does. And I feel like with all of her work, she tries to sort of like open up these discussions and sort of like make things plain rather than like sort of keep things hidden. I mean, even the desire to make comics about medicine is sort of like, well, let me explain this stuff to you so you know how it really works. People do go in with a lot of assumptions, whether it's about the assumptions of the life of an artist or the assumptions of someone who works in the medical industry.
Right.
And I think everything that she does, and maybe that's part of her like desire to teach or just to sort of like get the truth out in the open. I feel like all of her work is kind of expressing the ways, what's really going on. No, the uterus doesn't really wander. She's making fun of that.
Don't give it away.
But
spoiler alert.
You know what I mean? I feel like this is a thread through a lot of your work, is that it's like, and Silver Wire, it's sort of like, well, we take these things for granted, but what's really going on? These privileges or these opportunities we have, where do they come from? And you're so good at like putting out that work and sort of like saying like, I don't want to give you a false impression of any of this.
Aww.
So let me, explain it to you. And that comes through. Sure. It's in your work.
And I mean,
I'm just expressing a fact.
No, I like the way you expressed it because, and again, I haven't read enough. I've read your embroidery lab, and I've read because I came across it in the wild. I should be good at some point and order all of your stuff. But the two that I've come across in the wild are embroidery lab and Draw Stronger. So those are the two that I've read, and the others I look at on your blog or Birdcage Bottom and go, those are cheap. I should just order them all, and then I forget.
Please don't do this.
Chicago, right?
What?
You're in Chicago?
I am.
Yeah, because Chicago Comics also carries some of my.
Chicago Comics is where I picked up Embroidery Lab.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Also,
I'm gonna put in a plug. Is Silver Wire still on Medium?
Yeah, you can. My mini comic Silver Wire.
Yes, but I just looked at the first preview page on
Medium
Birdcage Bottom, and the very first panel has a baseball, so I need it physically.
Okay, well, just for your audience, if you want to dip into Kriota's work,
you can find it on you can find it on Medium. It's part of their Spiral Bound collection.
Okay.
Silver Wire is, but you don't. You only get
what I will say for everybody is, if you go to Kriota Willberg on Instagram, there's both a link to the Medium and a link to her link tree, which will take you to both Birdcage Bottomed and her blog, and a couple of appearances that are past. But it's always cool.
We'll update those.
Yeah.
It's always cool. Well, and for that matter, it's also Linktree/Kriota. This is the advantage of having a not incredibly common name. You can actually use it without numbers or anything crazy.
Yeah. It was a typo. My name was Krista, Krista.
Really?
And I used to dance with the Chicago Moving Company back in the 80s, and we were on tour down probably around Cairo or somewhere, and I can't remember where we stopped to do a concert, but there was a typo in the dance concert program, and they spelled my name Kriota. Okay. And everybody thought it was hysterically funny, so it became my nickname.
Okay.
And eventually it became my name. So
hey.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of nicknames, whether they're like old school, like crazy baseball nicknames or Kriota or, Tad for Thaddeus or whatnot, particularly as the ones that are either have a story or come about in some way organically. I think it's really cool when people, for that matter, one of the things that I like in a number of Native American cultures, a number of world cultures, is the whole idea that, you've got your birth name, but eventually you're going to get another name because you have to earn a name.
Yeah. I feel like I kind of earned mine.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. no one has, I'm no longer Krista. I'm Kriota. I'm Kriota legally now also.
Oh,
So,
wow. So
Yeah.
you really, you're
yeah.
like, I earned it. I'm taking it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love it.
The typo is mine.
There you go. Did you at any point go figure out who made the typo and thank them?
No,
Or
I
did you
didn't. I
keep that
probably
mystery.
should. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
funny. I never thought of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, this is my crazy head and how it works. I'm already scripting the comic.
They may never have known it was a typo.
Right.
It's true. Maybe they just misread it.
Yeah.
And for that matter, they may have found your comics because of the typo that they made. Oh, that's a weird name. Oh, she makes comics too. I remember when she was a dancer.
Yeah. That's true of some people. They remember.
I mean, because let's be fair, the S and the O are not close to each other.
Well, if you are typing,
You could go I-O.
the fourth
Yeah.
finger thing.
I-O.
Yeah, the
know.
I-O is more likely, but then you would expect it to be Krios.
You could have been Criosta.
Would expect it to be an
Sure.
added letter rather than
Yeah.
a replaced letter.
Yeah, yeah. And now sometimes people mistype my name and spell it Kriota.
I could see that.
But I'm not taking that. Like, I've drawn the line.
No. Well, and that doesn't strike me as a random typo or a seeing it wrong. That feels more like their brain is saying that makes more sense to them.
Mhm.
And therefore they're seeing. We can get into all sorts of stuff about what the brain will do with vision.
Sure.
My favorite little test taking tip to people is if you're reading a passage for a multiple choice test,
Mhm.
stop. Go to the questions, find the answers. Because one of those questions is going to be which one of these sentences contains an error. And the better reader you are, the more likely you are to have corrected that error in your head and literally have trouble seeing it.
Mhm.
That's interesting.
Particularly when it's that little, there versus there, or if you have already read it, if your brain has already filled in the gaps and put what it expects to see there, you are going to have to actively re-see it in the incorrect way. My teacher self popping out. I've always been the I don't even know where I like where I've wound up. Where I've wound up is I'm actually a special ed paraprofessional, which means I get to help out on all sorts of stuff, but don't have to do any paperwork.
Nice.
Or do very little paperwork. The downside is I get paid a lot less, and some people look at me as lesser, or he doesn't like blah, 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 whatever. But the upside is I get to do calculus 1 minute and chemistry the next and poetry after that and talk to the kids about anything and everything. And I love doing that because to me, education is way more about how you put all that stuff together.
Yeah.
Than any one thing. Which is also why I love comics as a medium, but comics is they're starting to finally be used as a medium. I mean, they're the perfect medium for this and always have been. There's a different universe where we developed comics rather than prose is the primary way of conveying information.
Well, and graphic medicine is really like in graphic medicine and narrative medicine studies and in bioethical, in medical humanities classes, graphic medicine is used a lot to teach medical students a lot of really complex ideas. And the other great thing about graphic medicine is, I'm a former healthcare provider, even though
Me
I'm the
too.
lowest step on the ladder, but
I ran dementia units. I liked
yeah,
massage
there you
therapists.
go. There you go. But also if you have experience as a patient and you're a
Yeah,
cartoonist and you want to write about that experience, that also makes you an authority on healthcare.
right.
And so, the patient perspective comics are also very valuable to
Incredibly valuable.
educating,
Yeah.
healthcare providers about, what those experiences are like. We will discuss
The healthcare providers that are willing to consider that.
yeah,
I worked in corporate healthcare way too much.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. So, in medical institutions also, like a number of, people working in hospitals or working for major institutions, they're also like really hungry for creative practice.
Right.
So like I'm at NYU, I'm teaching, drawing workshops and, graphic medicine classes and all sorts of things because being able to have some time to draw, to reflect on, whatever you're drawing in a way that lets you think about it other than as a physician or a student exclusively, or, even nursing staff or whatever. It can be very, I hate to say therapeutic, but very relaxing, very, energizing. There are all sorts of benefits you can get from it. And, people really start to recognize that kind of stuff.
Well, in any field, but particularly in fields that there's more that we don't understand than do. And medicine is definitely one of them. There's value in anything that makes you look at something differently. There's value in anything that makes it easier to help other people understand how you're looking at it.
Yeah.
It comes up a lot because I think on this show comes up a lot that in general, people think in words and people think in pictures. Most of the people who think in pictures have to then apply words to those pictures. Most of the people who think in words can use words to conjure pictures sometimes, or if they're like me, I'm pure words. I don't even see the words. I kind of hear the words. Hearing the words isn't quite the right way to put it either. The words are in my head. You ask me to describe Wrigley Field, I can give you an incredibly detailed description of Wrigley Field. I could give you a description of Wrigley Field that would allow either one of you, even if you'd never seen it, to draw it with amazing level of detail. I would not have seen a single part of it in my head while I was describing it to you. and I'd have a much harder time giving that description to have you give the amazing detail if I couldn't see what you were doing. Because as soon as I saw, I'd be like, oh, no, not quite like that. Lower the wall a little bit. The basket is angled differently. It's April, so the ivy shouldn't be all over. But that's where comics in and of themselves, without even trying, become a much more universal medium. Because for those of us who have trouble conjuring pictures, there are pictures to go along with the words. For those of us who have trouble taking those pictures and putting words and narrative message and whatnot to them, there are words to help you along with that. So the medium itself is already set up for that. But when it comes to teaching, when it comes to working in a field like medicine or whatnot, where you're trying to express really complex thoughts, every tool you have to simplify those thoughts for people is just so valuable. Every tool you have to make you think about those thoughts differently and this is where you're going to see the polyglot all over the place in me. I think Richard Feynman, physicist. So we're jumping disciplines here, but he said about magnetism, I could explain how magnetism works but you need to have at least a master's degree in quantum physics to understand what I was saying, which means I probably don't actually understand it that well yet.
You know, I kind of sometimes I run into that insider information versus like insider information for outsiders when I'm like making my comics, because I often also like to make jokes like in the comics about the medical information or whatnot. So, you know, when I'm first starting a project, you know, my healthcare friends will read a draft and they'll just be like, "Ah, this is hysterical." And then my other friends who like don't have a lot of experience in healthcare are just like, "I don't get it." And then it's like, "Oh, darn." Like, then I have to think, okay, who is this for and how,
Right.
like, that's for the general public. How do I translate that information? You know, it's really been an interesting process over the last 10, 11, whatever years, you know.
Yeah.
To
Funny that you bring up the humor. And
Yeah,
this is my brain going in another direction.
Yeah.
Ibram X. Kendi's Stamp from the Beginning was recently adapted to comic by Joel Christian.
Yes.
Yeah. Brilliantly so.
Yes.
Brilliantly so.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
But I saw Kendi on either PBS or MSNBC or maybe one of the Sunday morning shows right around the time it came out. And he got asked the question. Of course, they're going to ask him because comics don't. Yeah, I feel like Rodney Dangerfield. I don't get no respect. Comics don't get no respect. You know, why are you making it into a graphic novel? I mean, you've already got it as a book. You've already got it as a young adult book. You know, you adapted it for, you know, why a graphic novel? And he said, this is really heavy stuff, like ridiculously heavy stuff. It's a hard read. It's a little inaccessible because it can be painful to read, and it needs to be heavy, and it needs to be painful. And in prose, there's no way to lighten it that doesn't make light of it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way to lighten it that isn't condescending or glossing over things or whatnot. In a comic, you can have that weight and you can have humor on the same page and not take it, emphasizes it rather than takes away from it.
Well, and also some people like me use humor as a coping mecanism.
Exactly.
So,
exactly. That was his next sentence.
Yeah. Well, and you know, I'd say Ibram X. Kendi and Joel Gill, like they are actually making comics, like they're making comics more respectable to the rest
Absolutely.
of the world.
I hope.
I'm grateful for. I think.
I hope.
Great, so.
Yeah. I mean, but and I had to go back and you know, because I'd already read it when I saw the interview, because it was one of those handful that there's a lot of things that I buy both digitally and physically. There's some that I buy digitally and know I'll buy physically at some point, but I don't. I mean, I haven't bought my physical copy yet. But there's that like specified class of things that not only do I buy digitally, but I have a tendency to wait up for it to come out, download and start reading immediately. So I think that was a Tuesday release. So I had it downloaded to my iPad at like you know, they use East Coast time zone, so it was 11:01 Monday night. And I think I read like half of it before I passed out that night, and I finished it before work started in the morning. And I enjoyed it, but that's why I had to go back and I'm like, who's humor? He took Angela Davis and made her like the talking head, starting all the way back in like the 1700s, going, this seems familiar.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, that's brilliant. So,
I was on a panel with Joel recently talking about adaptations, and I would like to talk to him more about that one in particular, because I really felt like, unlike a lot of adaptations of prose into comics, it had I felt I heard much more of his voice than in other translations. I keep saying translations, I mean adaptations.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of a translation.
It is. But I felt like it was not quite a translation. It was more adapted, because I felt like his voice was a big part of it, because I really felt like what I'd seen in his own comics was really in there more.
Right.
And I thought that
think
was generous and smart of Kendi to let them make it that way.
Yeah, so it was a real collaborative project instead of like just
I think with
adaptation.
most nonfiction adaptations, that is the wiser way to do it. Because with very few exceptions, the writer wasn't thinking of it as a comic when they were writing it.
Right.
May or may not know anything about comics, period. And there's definitely a different storytelling style.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't read the original for Dan Rather's What Unites Us, but I've read the comic, and I'm pretty certain that they also gave the cartoonist a lot of latitude. I'm certain that the things in it were all in the book and whatnot, but you know, some of the so uniquely cartoonist decisions, you know, things like almost every time you have a character that is clearly on the right, he colors in blue. And almost any time you have a character that is clearly on the left, he colors him red.
Or the other way around.
No.
Oh,
because the book is what unites us.
I see. Interesting.
That's a complex message then.
Right. You know, and for that matter, even like Dr. King is colored both blue and red, depending on the page. You know, I mean, you can tell
appropriates him.
You can tell that, well, but also he was very progressive in some ways and very conservative in others.
Right.
You know, there are reasons why he's easier to appropriate than he might be.
Right.
Not the least of which is he's not around to argue.
Right. For sure.
It's way easier to start appropriating somebody when they can't show up and go, no, that's not what I meant.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what we did with Christ too, you know.
Sure. Often, frequently, always.
I mean, we're so good when we're talking about any wise people of the past.
Yeah, we know better than them.
Well, no, at taking that one sentence that supports our case.
Yeah.
Even if the 5 sentences before it say that it was relating to something else entirely, or the 5 sentences after it say that we didn't finish the idea and he's actually very much against us, or as my favorite is you know, I always forget the specific line that they use, but you know, a certain group of Christian identity Second Amendment nuts have come across the one line from Christ that they claim is the original version of the Second Amendment. It's what was rooted in it. And I'm sitting there going, first of all, if you read that whole thing, it's clearly an allegory. He's not actually saying to take up a sword. But second, how do you work that with like the entire
message of the New Testament,
message of the rest of Christ?
You know, I've been interviewed before.
Turn the other cheek, but buy an AR-15.
Well, I've been interviewed before and then read the interview or listened to it later and then just thought to myself, oh no, like it sounds different than what I meant. Like, and that's often my own fault. So I can imagine like Christ, I don't know, whoever, like Muhammad, anybody would have like a really hard time.
I think pretty much all of them would.
Sure, people like, you know.
But I also think that's why you so rarely have living prophets.
Yeah.
Right.
That are taken seriously.
Right.
Because as soon as they can weigh in themselves, then it's politics.
Yeah.
Get your politics out of my comics.
It's so easy to misunderstand people if you know,
particularly if you want to.
Context. Or if you want to, exactly. Yeah, that's a very good point.
And I don't even mean want to in a negative standpoint entirely anyway. You know, am a strong believer in, if you want to figure out why anybody did or said something, you need to first assume the best intentions. And so many people, I say that, they look at me and they're nuts. They're like, well, you think so and so was good intention? I'm like, no. This is not what I mean. You take whatever horrible thing it is and try to reconstruct their life, their experience in such a way that you can come up with some way that they could do that, and in their mind be the hero of the story.
Right.
Because I don't think anybody sets out not to be the hero of their own story. I think you can take the worst people in history and in their minds, whatever they're doing is justified. Now, I obviously, for a lot of them, have very different values, very different codes of ethics, often very different logic, because all of those play into where their mind is. You know, if their values are dramatically different than mine, we're going to get to, but sometimes even if our values are the same, but I'm much better looking at the big, I mean, how many people have similar values, but can jump on like the immigrant band or the anti-immigration bandwagon because all they hear is, oh, they're taking jobs, and they're like, I'm out of work and this is hard. And they can't step back and go, wait a minute, though, we've got really low unemployment and we can't find workers that we need, and it's causing inflation. But that requires a higher level thinking than a lot of people do, that some people are even capable of, and that they have time for. Because if you're working 50 hours a week to raise your 3 kids and you'd like to spend some time with those 3 kids, and hey, it's nice to watch the football game on Sunday afternoons, you start running out of time to necessarily do the level of deep thinking that some of us do because we don't know how not to.
Right. Well, it's when you,
and that doesn't make them horrible people. It just makes them different people.
Right.
No. And when you express sympathy for people who are trying to like dismantle this, it reminds me that like with Kriota's work and mine to a certain extent, we're often trying to like address bigger issues in a way that is accessible. Yeah. And also like sort of take different points of view into account. I mean, I don't do this as much as Kriota, but I mean, you could say maybe my terms and conditions book sort of did this. We were just sort of like, okay, I'm just going to take this text wholesale and just plop it into a comic book and see what happens. But Kriota also is trying to put across these big ideas and trying to be even-handed about it. And it sort of goes against, I mean, I like sort of being a little contrary in my comics, and that I'm making work that doesn't really feel like it should be a comic. I think this is more acceptable now. And I think after the stamped graphic novel that we're talking about, like that is a book that deals with a lot.
Nate
but I think
got Lies My Teachers Told Me coming out in, I think, May. Another one that
I didn't know that one. So anyway, I was just going to say, just to sort of bring this idea back where I don't even remember where I was going quite. I'm just trying to point the conversation back to Kriota and say that she
well, it's both of you. It doesn't have to go back to her, because
well,
I'm about to take it to you for a second.
Yeah, back to comics. But just the idea that like you're trying to be sympathetic to these points of view or these like blind spots that people have. And I think a lot of what Kriota does is also trying to kind of I mean, it's kind of what I said earlier, but a little different. We're both, sometimes people find our comics really dense and hard to penetrate. And I don't think they are, but then I'm also inclined to like appreciate big idea comics. I'm not making your work sound as good.
I
you're praising it nonetheless. So.
I think what you're trying to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're trying to take big ideas and not only make them accessible, but present them in a way that you encourage people to think about them without feeling like their decision has already you might think that there's an absolute right way to think about it, but you're not necessarily making that right way obvious and jamming it down their throats as much as you're going, hey, look at this.
Yeah.
Think about it this way or from this angle more than this way. You don't put the value judgment on it for them, but you encourage the line of questioning that they might not have previously engaged in. And I would argue that your Constitution Illustrated is actually an even better example of that than Terms and Conditions. And we've talked about this before, and I know that some of the panels you didn't even like intend to raise the type of thoughts that they did. Some of them they did. And I don't remember which is which, but the two that always stick with me in terms of how the art really emphasizes what they're talking about are your G.I. Joe cover for the Second Amendment, which again, you're leading the horse to water. If they want to be gung-ho Second Amendment, they got the Second Amendment and they got these awesome G.I. Joe
characters firing enormous cannons.
Right. But if they want to think about it a little bit, rather than Sergeant Rock or any actual U.S. soldier, they've got these fictional characters that live in this fictional world that people don't actually die in, play acting as soldiers. I mean, that page, I mean, my history with gun violence. We don't have to get into it all now. But that page struck me really seriously because I went, whether he realizes it or not, and if I recall correctly, when I talked to you, you just thought, oh, G.I. Joe will work well here. You didn't think the 6 extra layers that I thought when I saw it.
Well, that's great. I mean, my whole point was that it says militia.
Right.
So rather than use the Punisher, a lone person, I thought, well, militia is part of this. Let's put that in there.
But I took that extra step because you use this fictional militia, because you use this play acting, whatnot. That is just such a statement on the militia movement.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, that's the great thing about any visual art or any
and the other page that always strikes me, and this time I want you to remind me if you did have any specific thing that you were thinking about, is Article 5, where you've got Calvin and Hobbes and all of the arguing snowmen. Which, again, just perfect. Amending the Constitution. Let's have the boy and his fake tiger and all of the snowmen that are going to melt. But they're arguing and they can't agree on anything.
Right.
For something that's both the most beautiful and amazing thing about our Constitution and at times the most frustrating and depressing thing about our Constitution. It's beautiful because it can be done. It's frustrating because it's so damn hard.
Well, that's interesting. You pointed out 2 comics that I'm assuming you have some personal connection to. So,
well, I have no personal connection to G.I. Joe.
Oh, okay.
My personal connection to G.I. Joe is actually I wasn't allowed to watch this TV show because it was too violent. I could tune in for the now and knowing is the whatever.
Right.
The PSA at the end. I was allowed to turn it on for the PSA at the end.
That's funny. Yeah.
But I have a deep connection with the Second Amendment in a not as positive way.
Right.
So I mean, the whole time I was reading it the first time, I was concerned about how you were going to handle the Second Amendment.
Me too.
I was like, the nature of this book is that he's not too heavy in things. So it wouldn't necessarily be appropriate to have a death of Superman or whatever. But I don't know if I can handle like a joke.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't go there.
Right. Well, I obviously know that now, but when I read it, I
Yeah.
hadn't met you.
You don't know. And when you're making these, like I'm working on a follow-up about the Declaration of Independence, and
Oh, very cool.
there's still like there's some pages I just do not know what to do with. And some of that is not necessary. I mean, there is like offensive stuff in the Declaration, spoiler
There
alert.
is.
But beyond that, there's also just some part of there's just sort of some elements that are hard to visualize using the techniques that you've been using from the book, which is every page is based on some existing comics artist or comics character. So finding the matches sometimes takes precedent over the deeper meaning that I might want to bring to it.
Right.
Ideally, I can do both, but sometimes it's just filling in the crossword puzzle boxes and hoping
I get that. I get that. I write poetry sometimes and sometimes find that because more and more I've wanted to work in forms, or if not established forms, create forms rather than just working free verse. But that means that sometimes sections of it are incredibly meaningful, and other sections of it are, this is what I had to come up with to fit the form and keep it moving.
Right.
And I appreciate that. So we've heard Bob talk a lot about Criota's comics. I'm going to ask Kriota to talk a little bit about Bob's comics.
Oh, interesting. Terrifying.
Well, part of the way we were able to bond when we were first dating was that I was familiar with a lot of the older comics that Bob would parody, and
they weren't as old then, but
no, they weren't as old then, but it's like I was familiar with them, and also I loved his comics collection, and I've really appreciated what he does very much for the last 30 years, I'd say, at least. And of course I also I really respond positively to comics that obviously are the product of like a lot of process. There's a lot that goes into his work. He's very exacting and specific with how he, even when he's like making things appear random, like from his perspective, it's still like a very precise randomness. And I just have such a love for that type of work. It's like really and in some ways also with the terms and conditions, it kind of comes across almost as like postmodern performance art in a way. The way things are combined and the random text, like along with the visuals, like creates meaning from page to page. And like Bob just has a real talent for like taking these artistic techniques and blending them with the artistic techniques of other writers. Even I'm sure Apple wasn't being artistic, but other even lawyers. Other lawyers, whatever. Like,
that's nice. Thank you.
Right. He's just, his skills are just really great, and his ability to, pick two random elements and combine them, and create, deeper meaning in multiple ways that different people will interpret them differently. And that's also just really, that's really powerful, I think. So
thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I not only agree with everything you said, but in terms of the historical and blending, I'll go a step further. I would actually love to see Bob do more work similar to what he did for Tom Hanks, where he's blending his vast knowledge of an era worth of artists, and rather than recreating a page, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love it when you recreate pages in an individual style, but particularly the first two of your pieces, the one where you took the 50s war comics and you can see the Kubert and you can see the Wally Wood and you can see all of those guys that did so much, the Johnny Craig, the I don't know as many of the names as you would. and then the second comic where you took the undergrounds and you could see some Von Bodie and you could see some R. Crumb and you can see some Justin Green and you can see, but you put it all together and made it Bob Sikoryak working in this era because that's what's appropriate to tell this story. I would be fascinated to see more of that where you fit an era more than an artist to a story, or an era and a genre rather than a specific artist to a story, because I mean, I love your work. And I think you didn't take me as seriously as I meant it when I was gushing over getting to see your work in Tom Hanks's book and sending you text messages to say, "See, Bob, your book's on the."
Oh, I was happy to see that.
I know you were happy, but it's among. I love your work, and it's among my favorite work that you've ever done because, it took everything that you do well and put it together.
Oh, well, that's
rather than just, like with Constitution Illustrated, and Terms and Conditions, you're really great at taking and recreating in a different context other artists, other images, sometimes very specifically the other page, sometimes just it could be the other page, changing that little thing, the Steve Jobs head, or the more likely to be colonial garb for most of but you're, again, and for that matter, you're great at using somebody else's writing not intended for comics and doing that, which is why I would love a work that didn't necessarily go away from that, but still had more of your writing in it too, because you go to Masterpiece Comics and you're much more willing to actually rewrite.
Yeah, I miss doing that in the last few books.
Stories. So I mean, that's what I enjoyed with is your writing was there and your art was there and your ability to synthesize being an authentic artist yourself, but also understanding that not only are you standing on the shoulders of giants, but you appreciate and love the fact that you're standing on the shoulder of giants. You don't need to differentiate. I mean, it's another high school thing. You're only an artist if you're original. It's like, yeah, dude, get over yourself. You're 10,000 years too late to be original. It's so much more original to be willing to lean into it and go, I don't care if people see my influences. I'm doing my own thing. And if they see my influences, that just means that I'm more likely to want to talk to them because we could talk about Johnny Craig or whatever, Chester Gould. There we go. I knew I had to come up with one that was actually a Bob favorite.
Well, there's a lot. It's interesting what you say about the Hanks book. I hadn't really considered approaching what I do that way before, where I'm synthesizing different artists from the same era into like its own artist. When I started out doing like pastiche, I wasn't being specific about my sources, and I felt that made my art a little bit softer. Like, what if you're not specific about what you want to parody, then you kind of make something that's not like too much of your own impulses come through. And what I always try to do with my work is to subsume my impulses into the style that I'm trying to do. Right. What was interesting about the Hanks book was it was like a very well-paid research project, because the budget was such that I could take the time off to actually research the eras, and I had enough time to refine the drawing that I was able to sort of like minimize my drawing styles, which is still in there, but minimize them and really emphasize the kind of the period touches. But that's very, very time consuming. But that's interesting as an exercise. I might want to do that again, and that you responded to it is great.
Yeah, I mean, again, I and maybe this is I haven't read enough of the old stuff, but when you said my drawing style is still in there, I'm sitting there going, in a lot of ways, I felt like I saw your drawing style more than I've seen it anywhere else, because everywhere else, what I see is Bob Sikoryak being Raina Telgemeier, Bob Sikoryak being Fiona Staples, Bob Sikoryak being, and nobody is capable of that at the level that you are. I mean, just flat out. I don't know the names as well, but there are a lot of people out there that become incredibly famous because of their ability to do voices. That they wind up being able to be on the late night shows or whatnot because they can literally mimic almost anybody, right? You are that in the comics field. Nobody else even seems to try. I mean, you've both carved out this little world where you're doing this amazing thing.
Yeah.
That other people, I mean, like, plenty of people do homage covers. I mean, how many people have done the Dark Knight cover? Or you know what I mean? Tons of homage covers.
Yeah.
But it's very rare that somebody's like, I'm going to go beat for beat for even a page.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we talked about it a little bit recently. It was one of the things that I appreciated a lot about the recent Charles Schultz biography, is that they decided to structure it as if it was a Peanuts comic.
Yeah,
and did a pretty good job of it. But that was a bold decision, because we do have a society that likes to call people sellouts if they, I remember Neil Adams talking to Kevin Smith about going to the first time he ever sat in on or was a guest speaker at an art class, and he heard somebody like get down on tracing. He's like, "What the hell is wrong with you? Of course you trace. You're gonna spend an hour getting proportions right."
I never heard that. That's great. I mean, Neil Adams liked to be combative.
He's like, "You think Norman Rockwell didn't trace?"
That's great. Good for him. Good for him. Yeah. Glad to hear it.
And for that matter,
and Kevin Smith tells this story. I'm going to have to look this up.
Kevin Smith used to have a podcast called Fat Man on Batman. And Neil Adams was on it a couple of times for a total of like 5 hours. Let me see if it's still up. If it's up, I'll drop it.
No, we'll look it up later. Yeah, I don't want to interrupt it.
No. Absolutely.
It's exciting.
But yeah, no, it's pretty certain it's still out there.
I'll find it. I'll write it down.
No, for that matter, I mean, the namesake, and I always laugh at the different ways people take the 22 panels from our podcast, because like Paul Pope made the joke, you mean the 22 boring ass panels? I'm like, well, I mean, yeah, but that's missing the point. This isn't 22. I mean, 22 panels that always work, or some interesting ways to get some variety into those boring panels where some dumb writer has a bunch of lame characters sitting around and talking for page after page. They're not the 22 panels that are the most awesome panels ever. They're not the 22 panels that are beautiful. They're the 22 panels that sometimes your job is to move the dialogue along.
Yeah. If you're not writing it yourself, you're
and if you don't immediately have something cooler, don't waste time trying to figure out a cool way. Pick the panel that fits and move on, because you're getting paid by the page. Another thing that he reportedly once said was never draw what you can trace, never trace what you can copy, never copy what you can paste up. You
I
know.
remember that. I think about that a lot.
Sage word. It's like,
Well, and it's the difference between people who are aspiring artists and people who are artists. Almost all the artists I know, starting with my wife, craft is incredibly important. And a lot of what most artists consider craft, most people who don't understand art and the amount of work that goes into it already, and therefore, cutting corners when it doesn't actually cut quality is like really important. If only so you don't get bored, but really so, if you're getting paid by the piece, by the page, whatever, you can maximize your creative output rather than, oh, I have this great idea, so the first thing I'm going to do is spend 12 hours on the part that I could do in 30 seconds if I was willing to cheat.
well, also if you have a certain set of skills and ability and you're confident in those skills and ability, then sometimes it would still be more efficient if you're working for somebody else to like crank things out in a slightly different way. And
Right.
It doesn't make you less of an artist because you can still do this stuff on a Sunday.
Well, but I mean,
whatever. So
I even just put it in the, when I ran dementia units, my wife would do paint and sips with my residents. And the first time we did it, everybody thought we were crazy. That you're going to have a bunch of dementia residents paint. And then when it was done, it's like, oh my God, these are amazing. It's because A, they had a good teacher. B, paintings on those levels aren't nearly as hard as people think they are.
mm-hmm.
And one of the big things is because we see them backwards. The first time we did something with her and she's like, okay, we're going to do a sailboat. And the first thing we're going to do the whole thing blue. And I'm like, what? Wait, what? Huh? Because in my mind, you always draw the sailboat and then you draw the background. It's like, no, fuck that. It's so much harder to paint around. Paint the whole thing blue. We'll take a break, let it dry for a little bit. And I'm like, that makes so much sense. But again, as the non-artist, so like the non-artist looks at a comic book page and they're like, oh, well, you draw the action and then you draw the background. And no, you don't. Half the time you let somebody else draw the background, depending on how important it is. You think manga comes out weekly with them drawing everything? No, they've got somebody else to do 90% of the background. They do the important parts. For that matter, it took me so long to realize that the difference between and to appreciate the fact that for a while Marvel changed the languages. But the difference between a penciler and an inker is really layouts and finishes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because when you think pencil and an inker, it's really easy to think of the inker just as a tracer. And even if you know that the ink is going to be giving definition and that it's not simply tracing, it's still easy to think of it as a much lesser work, right? But the reality is pencils can be tight, pencils can be loose, but what they're really doing is laying out the page and the action and the shape and the whatnot. And some of them are really tight, so your inking becomes more tracing. And some of them are ridiculously loose. So if you want to know that this character is actually Matt Murdock, that's on the inker, not the penciler. The penciler gave the diagram of what the body should look like in air. The angle of the head, the angle of the legs.
Well, Kriota and I mean, all this makes me think about, we spend a lot of time talking about just the labor intensiveness of our ways of doing comics.
Right.
You don't have finishers.
Right.
The only time we ever actually collaborate on comics is sometimes I will let Kriota flat colors for me when I'm on a big deadline, and I've done it a little bit for you.
Do that for me also.
But basically, flatting is just like defining the areas, and then the other person will go in and like fix.
Thank you for defining it again. But I actually learned that one because because it's come up before on the podcast.
Yeah. So, well, for the
Well, and particularly
for the
important
audience,
in the digital comics
we're still
era,
listening to this.
because well, hi mom, hi John. Particularly important in the digital comics era, because really what you're doing more than anything is defining the different zones so that they can go in and just click on them and start coloring them, rather than having to
right
do the tedious part. So but that does actually lead to a question that I like to ask the people who do everything on their own. How do you work at each level? You know, from thumbnails to pencils to inking to how has that changed? Are you still looking for ways to improve speed or quality? Talk to me process. I'm always I'm gonna have Bob talk first because he's been cartooning longer. But then but then the follow-up question is, how has having two cartoonists in the house, or has it changed the way you've done any of that, because you've started trading ideas with each other about, hey, have you thought about doing it this way, or have you thought about doing that? And I'll try to shut up for a while.
Well, one thing that I got from Kriota, which I might have talked to you about on the podcast before, is that we started doing 24-hour comics together, which I always wanted to do, but never got around to. And because Kriota was enamored by the idea, which is the platonic ideal of a 24-hour comic is to draw 24 pages of comics in 24 hours. Yeah. This is consistent. This is the Scott McCloud conceit. Yep. And in some ways, by doing them with Kriota, it's good to do it with a buddy, so you're not awake all by yourself. I found it. I hit the wall enough doing them with Kriota, where I'm like, at 13 hours in, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Like, having someone else there also working on it makes you plow through. This does relate to like how you make comics, because in that case, you're just trying to plow through. And that's not something I usually do with my comics. They're much more methodical. Mm-hmm. So putting myself in a situation where I had to make them quickly, I think I got to 16 pages on my best attempt with a 24-hour comic. We still do them sometimes. But just sort of getting through that many pages and proving myself I could do it was great. And that just makes you think about the way you spend your time working a little differently, and also made me kind of approach what kind of comics I would make differently than I would have if I hadn't started doing those. So for people who are getting started making comics, even if you do a 5-hour comic, just sit down for 5 hours and see what you get. And even if it's a page or two, or maybe it's 5 panels, I think that's a great way to sort of just like crank something out, and then
I will add the flavor that my brain adds to that. Is when you mentioned 24-hour comics, two things popped into my head other than the Scott McCloud that you already said. The first is, I don't know if have you ever been to Anyone Comics in Brooklyn?
Oh, we were just talking about them because they just moved.
Well,
I think I was inside once, but I haven't been in years.
Great shop. And overall, I'm not the one major point of sadness to me that they had to move was essentially their move got rid of their event space. They weren't able to use it as much or well enough to be worth the rent. Mm-hmm. But one of the coolest things that they use their event space for is every year, I forget what 24-hour comic day is, but there is a
April or May, I think.
Yeah, something like
somewhere
that.
In the spring.
Yeah.
Whatever the day is, they held an event, and they would publish 24-hour comics made from their event.
That's great.
I have a book. I mean, one of the purchases I made the one time that I went to Anyone Comics was their 24-hour comic book from the previous year. And I thought of that because you were talking about having somebody to stay up with made a difference. And this is where I'll also say the very first published work of one of the most famous artists in comics today, Fiona Staples, was from a 24-hour comics event in Toronto.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I also
it's
just need to
available.
point out for everybody that, and for me, when I'm doing a 24-hour comic, I'm not following the rules. It just means I'm going to make comics for 24 hours straight.
And that's
So
okay too.
it's very unstructured, but it's also the idea like gives me an encapsulated time to like create. It just gives me a significant amount of product to show for the amount of time I've been working. And so sometimes if I don't get the comics done, like at the end of our 24 hours, of course I don't care because I have to go to sleep, but
Right.
I'm still inspired to get back on it and
Right.
get the stuff done as soon as possible. So,
Uh,
I really appreciate, Scott's ability to like create this framework that we can still honor and follow, even though of course I'm cheating all the time.
Well, and I mean, I think even Scott in creating the framework gave a lot of leeway to it.
Yeah.
And I've seen it done differently. I remember one year, and I don't remember if she managed to pull it off for every hour, but Liz Prince tried to do a 4-panel diary comic for every hour during a 24-hour comic day. So
I think that's become a thing, hasn't it?
I think it might have. Yeah, I don't even remember if she did it first, but that was her way of celebrating 24-hour comic day. Was I'm gonna this is so I mean, like sometimes the panels were sat with the coffee, the coffee, the cat, sleepy Liz, and the pencil on the page. But yeah, I mean, it's like when I was talking about poetry earlier. I mean, there's so many ways to make art, and sometimes when you have a grand idea, or even when you don't have a grand idea, using form or structure, or in this case, a very specific deadline, can be an incredible thing for just seeing what happens. Might not wind up being your greatest achievement. I mean, it might, because God knows weirder things have happened. But it's almost certainly going to change the way you think about it, all of your work, because you've had to exercise your mind in a different way. I mean, to me, that's one of the beautiful things about that, or what is it, Inktober?
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have it? No, I don't have it on the shelf right here. Elsa Chartier did an Inktober graphic novel a couple of years ago, where she even kickstarted it. And it's like, here's the list of words, and we're gonna write and draw on each day. We're doing, we have a little bit of an idea of what it's going to be, but this, at the end of it, this will be the graphic novel. If you want it, kickstart it now. And it was amazing. Just these single page around a theme for that word of the day. Which, I mean, anybody who's taken a creative writing class has had to write write a short story. Here's 7 words. They have to be in there somewhere. Yeah. So we went off on 24-hour comics. We didn't actually get much on process. So it's up to you guys. Do you want to talk process, or do you want to call it a day? Do you want to talk process another day? What are we feeling like?
I'm feeling like talking process another day, actually.
That's fair. That's right. What I was kind of picking up. I was looking up and going, it looks like everybody's kind of hitting that. But I'm always interested. I keep meaning to try to get a group of artists together to talk shop. So I'll definitely keep you guys in mind, because comics do get made in so many different ways. Every once in a while, I'll even come across somebody who essentially goes straight to ink, which just that I'm sitting there going, you what?
They paint the whole page black. And then they start drawing the sailboat.
Well, I mean, Frank Miller, when he was doing Sin City, did figure out by like the second volume that what he needed to find was that black paper that you scratched away the white.
Oh,
rather
sketchboard.
than
Sketchboard, yeah.
Right. So most of Sin City was done on scratchboard rather than paper because he realized that rather than having to fill in
makes total sense.
All that black, he's like, it's going to be a really dark book. It's going to be totally black.
That's great.
But he had to think about. I remember reading that in the introduction to some volume of Sin City years ago.
Well, there's an art of book. I don't remember that being in there, but maybe it's in the artists.
Right.
Cool.
But,
well,
yeah,
have him on with us next time.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, if you've got contact information, I'd talk to Frank.
Oh, did you? Oh, you would.
I said I would. I would. I haven't.
I met him very briefly at an event 20 years ago. It was super nice. It was very nice.
He seems like a nice and interesting
really
guy.
Enthusiastic. It was great to see someone who was like enthusiastic about comics, not just a pro.
I love how many people are. That's been my favorite thing about getting. I still don't like calling myself in the business because I feel like I'm on the periphery of the business. I'm like an elevated fan, but then I'm at cons or whatever, and you guys all treat me more like a peer than I'm like a peer that does something else. You know, it's
a very friendly. It's a very friendly group of people.
Right.
So yeah, we've done well in it.
And I think almost everybody who loves comics, like, I don't think you can manage to work in comics without loving comics. And I think most people who love comics.
Why would you?
Yeah, I know.
Exactly. Find themselves evangelists for comics on some level. They get really excited, at least about their little world.
Yeah.
So let me take us out, and then we'll chat for a couple minutes, and I'll let you go, and we'll see each other again soon, hopefully. So for Kriota Willberg and Bob Sikoryak, both of whom have websites that you can find pretty easily. I'm pretty certain that as soon as you put Kriota into Google, the only person you're going to find is Kriota Willberg.
That's more or less true. Yeah.
Yeah. For reasons that have been, I'm hoping that anybody who's still with us now heard the story at the early podcast. I mean, it'd be really weird if you just jumped in for this part. So for Kriota and Bob, this has been 22 Panels. We will see you after the next page.
Hey guys, this is Tyler from 22 Panels. I'm here to tell you all about our Patreon. If you enjoy this show, please consider donating to our Patreon to keep this show going. We have many different tiers, all different levels to help you decide what's right for you. Okay, so get on out there to patreon.com/22panelspodcast.